I think that one of the important questions now is, if we have this evidence, what does it tell us? How did that shot in the windshield get there, and when could or would it have had occurred? I believe it was likely the first or the second shot, and now I'm becoming more and more convinced that it would correspond somewhere between Zapruder frames 216 to 224. Likely the second shot. I'm going to show you the slides all at once to maintain some continuity. I've got quite a few slides that you'll see momentarily. But Stavis Ellis saw what he believed to be a shot hit the ground shortly after the Elm Street turn. You know, as we get into the Zapruder film debate, the part that has always puzzled me the most is why Zapruder would have stopped filming and begin filming again when the motorcade is coming around the corner, and then magically there's the limousine. And this is interesting when you listen to what Ellis has to say that he saw, because what that would have eliminated is what he saw here. He says right after he had turned back, he was about 25 feet or so in front of Kennedy's limousine, had looked, 100 to 125 feet in front of the limousine, and he had looked back and he had noticed debris from the ground kick up, consistent with a shot on the south side of Elm Street across from the depository. He has sent me a diagram. I'm going to show you exactly where he said he saw this kick up. James Chaney, who was so isolated after that day when he did some TV interviews, which in those interviews he said Kennedy was, the second shot hit Kennedy in the face, which is curious with what I've got to say now, was put under wraps. Chaney also saw that debris come up. They showed the FBI agents that were investigating for the Warren Commission exactly where they saw that debris come up. And they told them that they could not have seen such a shot. Told the Dallas police officers, you could not have seen that. Ellis restated the same observation to the House Select Committee investigators. It's in JFK document number 013841. Now, why would somebody fire an early shot? If we're looking at the 6th floor depository, I'm not sure the shot came from there. Possibility it came from the roof or whatever. But of course you have the tree obstructing the view. So if Ellis describes where this shot took place, a shot from the depository, the tree would be an obstruction. However, if the major function of this shot was to create a diversion to draw spectators' attention away from other places, it didn't matter where the shot hit or if the tree was in the way or not. It didn't matter. Any person, and where he points it out is where their crowds weren't standing, interestingly enough. Any person present in Dealey Plaza, your first attention is going to be drawn to the nearest sound. I think it's a significant interest that many of the witnesses believe the first shot sounded like a firecracker, or one of the first few shots. We thought firecrackers were going off. What is more interesting is that some witnesses thought the firecracker sound sounded like it was right in the limousine. I confirmed this with Bill Newman again just a few weeks ago. He's testified about this in the past in interviews. His words to me is, yeah, I thought the firecracker sound appeared to be by the limousine. I've done the test myself. One phenomena that would absolutely sound like a firecracker in the vicinity of the limousine was if a bullet hit the windshield. Test it out. It's going to sound, you're going to get a firecracker-like sound, the impact of a bullet hitting the windshield. And Roy, who I've got all the respect in the world, knows much more the technical aspect of this, just shaking his head, yes. But Mr. Newman is also one of many witnesses who further maintains this date, his belief that the limousine came to a stop or near stop during the shooting on Elm Street. But like I said, Secret Service protocol, 10 to 12 miles per hour. Even the Zapruder film, we have the car going down as low as 3 miles per hour. If a witness from Ford is to have credibility, it is important that we discern a location from where a shot to the windshield would have originated. Bob Groden probably doesn't remember this. We talked about this actually just about a year ago. We disagree, I guess, and you'll have to form your own opinion. And maybe I've persuaded him differently today that the Alchins photographs, I believe, shows evidence, clear evidence of a hole. And what they did with the Alchins photograph, I believe also, is indicative of that evidence of a hole. Not only is the mark I'm going to show you in the slides in a couple minutes consistent with exactly, it's consistent exactly where this person from Ford and people said they saw the hole in the windshield. Exactly consistent. Actually, why don't we, I think I'll go ahead and do the, I'm going to show you those slides now. Do I just need to hit forward? Am I aiming at something wrong?
Left side.
Yeah? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
No, I got it. I'm trying to. Yep. Get me out of your way if I'm in your way. Rear view mirror right here. This is from Bob Grodin's book. Hole right there. And what I'm going to show you is how that hole also lines up with the shot that hits Kennedy in the throat. I think it's the most likely explanation.
Could you point that out one more time?
Nebula right here. It's going to, if we see the larger photograph, it's going to look like it's left ear. But see this distortion in the glass? A shot's going to cause distortion. See the dot in the middle? I believe that's the hole.
You'll see it better on the
Here's why I'm suspicious, too, that they knew it was a hole and they covered it up. Look what somebody did later in publishing a photograph. You don't see a dot there. They put a diagonal line. Anytime somebody changes something, again, my antenna goes up. Nothing else has changed.
But rear view mirror is over where it should be.
Rear view mirror is a little distorted. But look how they put that diagonal line right there. If you looked at the newspaper the next day, this is what was published in the newspaper this day. They took it out altogether. They took that whole area out altogether. This is what's published in the newspaper.
How about in the torches past?
In the torches past.
It's in there.
Oh, okay.
That was like in December. 14th.
Okay, I got to get back to this stuff. Okay, we're going to just stay on that. But I'm suspicious. They bleep it out. The next day, this is published in the newspaper, November 23rd, 1963. You have 3 different photographs.
Isn't the head of John F. Kennedy different than the photo?
Yeah, it sure does look to be, doesn't it? It's very suspicious. But you're seeing, yeah, Greer's face looks to be, these look to be almost animated. They look to be enlarged. They look to be enlarged. These look like, you know, people with supersized heads. Had to be touched. But they obviously touch out this area. You see Kennedy clutching his hands towards his throat. But when I see this, suspicious, and it gives me more credence. What I did after I looked at this evidence, I went down to Dealey Plaza. Now, if I believe there's a hole there, I'm going to have to determine where that shot could have come from. And I had talked to, I don't know if Rick Russo is still here, we had talked with him, and actually this ended up being in a different location. I thought it was going to be on the grassy knoll area. It was not. There is one spot that lines up perfectly, and you're going to see some video of this too, that someone, I'm making one assumption, that the person is firing at Kennedy. There's only one part in Dealey Plaza that person could have been in a concealed location, fired a gun, and caused damage to this area of the windshield by the time the Alchin's photograph was taken.
Do you have a bigger version of the Alchin?
Probably along, but I'm going to go through all my slides at once. They kind of, we didn't get as organized as I liked because of the delay this morning. First, it is critical to weigh the possibility that Kennedy suffered an entry wound to the throat at the time of the Alchin's photograph. We see both arms, we're going to see, are lifted towards his throat. I believe the observations of the physicians and medical personnel are important. Manning pointed that out. The evidence that the wound to the throat of Kennedy was an entrance wound, was powerful. You've heard the stories. Malcolm Perry, Life magazine first quoted him as stating that Kennedy must have turned around, exposing his throat to the shooter's nest. He knew that was an entrance wound. Press conference, very clear. Where was the entrance wound? Perry, there was an entrance wound in the neck. In regards to the one in the head, I cannot say. Question, which way was the bullet coming on the neck wound? At him? Perry, it appeared to be coming at him. Perry, next page, the wound appeared to be an entrance wound in the front of the throat, he says. Yes, that is correct. Baxter in 1979 says entry wound. 1992 says, looking at the hole, one would have to think in my immediate thought that this was an entry wound because it was so small. Dr. McClellan noted it was a throat wound, had the appearance of the usual entrance wound of a bullet. Charles Carrico, the wound was a small penetrating wound. Gene Aiken, another doctor, must have been an entrance wound. The lay witnesses, Dr. Manning pointed out, Nurse Diana Bowron, well, it looked like an entry wound. And the evidence went on and on. I just want to note, Perry only reevaluated his statement only after he had a lot of pressure from the Secret Service, and there's documentation of that. And the other thing that Perry did, I know there's at least one other attorney here today, very skillful. You have to understand this when you can ask hypothetical questions of an expert witness. But if your hypothetical has an invalid assumption, you can come up with you can force a totally different response. Spector was very clever. Because he knew there was no cross-examination, he hypothetically set up his question, and then when he asked the ultimate question, Perry would say, then is it possible that the wound could have been one from the back? He said yes. But I'm going to tell you that the methodology that he used, and I could very easily use it. I questioned Dr. Perry, and I say this not in a bragging sort of way or anything, just I think any good attorney can do this. I could have gotten, without cross-examination, I could have gotten Dr. Perry to admit that all of Kennedy's wounds were self-inflicted if you set up the right hypotheticals. There's a lot of recent research done in this. Millicent Craner has been just wonderful with me. She has provided. I admit, I'm going to tell you, when it gets into ballistics and stuff like this, I know my limitations. I don't pretend to be an expert on all of these things. But I look to people that I know that they are, that I trust, and I corroborate that. That's what I do. And Millicent Craner has done some excellent work. She can go through things that probably only Dr. Mantik and, well, maybe the rest of you can understand, showing how persuasive it is that that is an entrance wound. Again, this location that we saw in the windshield is identical to what the person from the Ford Motor Plant described. The only physical reaction we see from Kennedy is the motion of raising his arms to the areas of his throat. And this obviously has to be one of the first few shots because we know that the Alton's photograph, even though there is some debate, supposedly corresponds to approximately Zapruder frame 255. But it's like the evidence of the shot is more likely between 216 to 224. Again, I'm assuming that anybody shooting through the windshield, and we're going to look at that, why would they do that, was trying to hit the president. The only logical place that works to the exclusion of any other location is on the south side of the underpass near the top of the Stemmons Freeway. Let's see if I can get to that slide. I want the Dealey Plaza. There we go. Greg Janes provided this to me. And I just want everybody to understand as I talk where I'm talking about. This is one of the best photographs I think I've ever seen of a Dealey Plaza overview. Where I'm talking about is right here. Depending when the shot took place, we don't know exactly because of the frames, but it's taking place somewhere in here. The shooter's location could actually vary about 15 feet. Any one of these spots, if you stand there, is concealed from anybody standing on the overpass. You can't see. Well, I'm going to go to that. Sewer drain really has nothing to do with it. No, it's because of the 45-degree angle. That it's symmetrical. It has a 45-degree angle there and here. So if you're anywhere behind here, you cannot be seen from there. But also there's a parking lot here. I'm going to explain some of the other things that have occurred since the assassination and in this area. But very isolated. I mean, anybody watching, you have who's it down here, tagged down here. You have some police officers and some people that shouldn't have been standing up there. Everybody else is up here. The place I was describing, Stavis Ellis, the shot he sees lands right here. So the shot is taking place, what had taken place is Kennedy's vehicle is turning the corner. Some people say that Kennedy's vehicle, the interesting thing, almost hit the curb by the depository. How would that be significant? Because if it did, it puts it even on more of an angle that this becomes a straight-on shot from the south side of the underpass, if that's true. Doesn't need to happen to prove that happened.
It may have been deliberate then that he swung so wide to stop and virtually come to a halt there, as Roy truly testified
Well,
that the shot to occur.
My theory will rest, and you're only seeing a brief part of it, that certain members of the Secret Service allowed the assassination to happen. And I'm going to talk about that at the end. Let me hold the questions, and I will answer, again, any questions at the end. But this is the area that I'm talking about. It's the only area that works. The highest standard of proof in the American system of justice is beyond a reasonable doubt. In some states, they equate this term to moral certainty. Neither a shot from this area, the hole in the windshield, an entrance wound to the throat of the president, or the location of the limousine when Kennedy reaches for his throat can work independently unless you coordinate these variables in unison. They all have to work together. If he's not hit in the throat, if the windshield hole happens somewhere else, none of these things work together. They work perfectly in unison with this scenario that I've just provided to you. Is there any corroboration for such a shot? It would certainly enhance the validity of such a conclusion. An extensive review of the literature on the assassination does yield some positive results. If you got Texas Monthly Magazine for November 1998, Hargis made some interesting cryptic statements. He says, I was trying to find out where the shots came from. I saw up on the grassy knoll people falling down, people around me were hitting the ground. I ran up the grassy knoll to look up at the railroad tracks. He's running over here and I couldn't see anything there. So I ran back down on my motorcycle and I thought, what is he going to think? God, is he thinking depository here? What's his next thought? He says, I thought maybe he might be on the other side. So I motored down beneath the underpass, right underneath this area, and looked up on the other side and didn't see anyone over there, so I came back. The significance of this is that this is an automatic reflex reaction. What is he thinking? It's not there. Gosh, it must be over on the other side. History might have a different record today had Officer Hargis went first to the south side of the underpass. There was also early speculation about a shot from the South Grassy Knoll area, and I guess I'm not going to get into all of those, but there was also other evidence presented to the House Select Committee that it was asked that they investigated that, and I'm going to show you the Frank Cancellaire photograph, which shows this area within 1 minute after the assassination. And they wanted to have, one guy tried to persuade the House Select Committee to do studies on that, and perhaps Robert can shed some light on that, but the studies were never done. Dr. Robert McClellan, Jenkins, Adolph, photograph. I'll wait for the slide on that. There's another guy, if you follow the internet, I'm told, and I'm not going to jeopardize it, I'm legally prohibited from revealing his identity. You know who I'm talking about if you see this on the internet. This guy claimed to have CIA connections, was standing on the South Knoll during the assassination. I was read an interview, and supposedly this guy has testified before a congressional committee, and that testimony is still sealed as top secret a couple years ago. I was read the interview in 1995 that he did, and he describes, he's standing over here 30 to 60 seconds after the assassination. He describes walking up to this area and smelling gun smoke. Smelling the smoke of smelling gunpowder. You don't smell the smelling gunpowder. He had another individual with him that did that. What makes this interesting is that he's revealing this information without knowing, of course, about my witness from Ford or any of these other things that just all connect. I mean, he has no idea, well, geez, Doug Weldon has found an interesting aspect. Boy, wouldn't it be great if my story just happens to jive 100% with what he's saying. I am confident that this individual was unaware of any of the facts that I presented to you today. He just, in the middle of his statement, and again, I've read this full statement, he talks about how he went up there and smelled the gunpowder. There's also, I should note, I'm going to point out to you, this person appears to me to be credible, and that one of the Cancellaire photographs, one of them shows to be showing an individual standing in the area that he claimed he was at the time of the assassination. The most interesting thing I found was in Penn Jones Jr.'s. I mean, God bless these early researchers. I mean, I see somebody like Robert Groden here, I'm in awe, just because they pioneered the way. But he wrote just an innocuous thing in his Forgive My Grief 4 book. And here's what he writes. He says, one witness to the assassination of President Kennedy told this writer that shortly after the shooting, he observed a woman being taped by a TV camera. He heard her say that she saw a shot fired from the south side of the railroad overpass as the president was killed. And this guy says, to our knowledge, there is no record that this tape was ever shown on TV. In fact, we never know the identity of this woman. The guy that told Penn Jones this did so because he was there when they were doing the interview. He was within the TV cameras. As Penn Jones says, he stayed up all night hoping to see himself on TV. Of course, 1963, to be on a TV would be a real treat. And these kind of things. Stayed up all night. Corroborates exactly what I said. Shooter from the south side of the knoll. It provides the most practical and reasonable explanation for a shot that could have caused the wound to the president's throat. We hear the things about the umbrella man, who I think is a signal man, but the flechette and all of these things. If it's real complicated, again, I look for the most reasonable, simple solution that can answer a question, and that is likely to be the accurate solution. This makes more sense. Why would a shooter fire a shot through the windshield of a car from this relatively great distance in order to hit Kennedy? The distance from the top of the south side of the underpass to Kennedy would have been about 225 yards. There are some logical answers to that question. You have to understand the logistics of the underpass here. Researcher Jack Brazil and other people always raise the issue that some shots could have been fired. There's a storm drain here, and there was a storm drain here, that literally a guy about 6 foot tall could stand up and it would be at about shoulder height. You can actually look into the one on the north side today. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But Brazil said a shooter could stand up in the storm drain and would have been in position to brace a rifle for a perfect shot. With a grate removed from the drain, a vehicle could be parked over the drain, providing total concealment for the shooter. This would have been true on the north side. It would have been true on the south side. I think John Armstrong has left. John's got an interesting thing that he found. I've never been able to follow up on the guy. I can't find him. Is that Dealey Plaza was designed to be an urban development. So there are sewer drains going all through Dealey Plaza, and they go down much further. Open sewers. It was designed for a residential plat when they first designed Dealey Plaza. There's an interesting story that soon after the assassination, there's a pharmacist that sees some people about a half mile down coming out of these storm drains and all dirty and jumping into a car and taking off. Whether or not, I don't know what the logistics are, how wide the storm drain was here on the south side, and we can't know now. But it was part of this intricate network. Again, you can examine the north side of the storm drain today if you want to and see what it looked like. But there was a corresponding drain on the south side on November 22, 1963. Like I said, it was also concealed from anyone on the main side of the underpass, 45-degree angle. It is documented. We know there were police officers there and people that violated standard Secret Service protocol. And again, depending where the shot occurred, there could be a 15-feet variance. The person could still have been concealed, but I think it's likely that the storm drain would have been the most ideal position. This storm drain, go there today, it's now paved over. You can't see it. It's paved over. Again, I always get a little suspicious when I see them distort evidence. It's like on the grassy knoll shot, now they've erected this sign now. Robert, you probably see it every day, that anybody that wants to see the shot, they can't see it anymore because it's in the way.
It got taken down 2 weeks ago.
Thank goodness. I mean, it was just unbelievable that they did that. But also, they put an electrical box in front of the storm drain there. If you could have gotten into it, this electrical box is in the way now. But you can still work out the angles, and it can still work even with that there. Now, I tried to find out, why did they pave over that drain? Well, they said, well, you know, there's walkways now on the overpass, and it's really a safety issue to have a storm drain there. Well, my retort is, why is it a safety issue here and not here? I mean, I'm maybe innocuous, maybe innocent. I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps not. The other interesting thing is that this angle provided an unobstructed view to the limousine. It was very isolated. Any spectators, I mean, if I'm going to watch Kennedy, I'm not going to say, geez, let me get myself positioned over here. I'm going to get myself as close as I can to view. You got people standing in here, you know, you're not going to be that far away. So it's very isolated. Dealey Plaza, as opposed to the full motorcade route, contained a very sparse crowd. This was the end of the parade route. The attention of everyone was focused on the motorcade, the crowd, and the immediate surroundings. There was no reason for anybody to scan up on this, to look at this area, to check it out if you're just a spectator. Why would you look over here? You're going to look at what's going on, the business, what's going on. You're not even going to think to look over there. The other thing that I never appreciated, in those of you that have been to Dallas, is you can't tell what a long slope, what a deep slope Elm Street is. From the top of here to the top of here, it's not much difference in height. It's maybe an 8-degree trajectory, a downward trajectory, 8 to 18 degrees, somewhere in that range. Very small, but you can't appreciate that. I mean, the two things with Dealey Plaza is obviously you're just floored by how small it really is, but how high this street is in comparison to here, which actually makes it a very slight downward trajectory. Also, with the limousine coming this way, with it being such straight on, it really wasn't much of a moving target. And if it did take that full turn and come straight on, if it is almost straight on, it's not, the target is stationary because the target is coming right towards you and actually getting bigger. If you have even 2 seconds, you don't see a moving target. You've got the vehicle coming towards you. It made that an ideal location. A serious sniper would have practiced a shot for accuracy, trajectory, and to determine what ammunition could penetrate the safety glass with the desired effect. The one factor nobody could plan on that day, why would you shoot from there, was the weather. They had bad weather that morning. What if Kennedy had used the bubble top, or had used the bubble top for some other reason? It would have created a multitude of problems for any shooter. However, if you have planned the shot through the windshield, reasonable variations in the weather would not have affected the sniper aiming through the windshield at all. The bubble top would. If you have other shooters, which I of course believe, maybe a multitude of shooters, then that bubble top could have created severe problems. Not a problem. Not a problem, because you've practiced for this. And you've isolated the person. It logically, again, makes sense. And if it makes logical sense, if it's plausible and consistent with the rest of the explanation, I believe that we should give it credibility. Other curious situations existed that day. Just for some of you that are new, Dallas was a very hostile environment in November '63. We all know the famous incident of Adlai Stevenson, the United Nations ambassador, former presidential candidate, being sped on and hit with a sign in October of '63. Something very common happened during motorcade routes. It was different that day too, and I'm very suspicious again of the Secret Service. General Ted Clifton and General Godfrey McHugh were two of Kennedy's aides. In almost every motorcade, I'm going to show you, you'll see it on the slide, one of them rode in the front seat between the two FBI agents. You usually, almost without exception, had 3 people riding in the front seat. On this date, Godfrey McHugh had expected to ride in the front seat of the limousine. He was placed in the back of the motorcade. He later admitted this was unusual. This was the first time he was advised not to ride in the car, and the reason they gave him was so that all attention could be focused on Kennedy. Well, what kind of logical sense does that make? If he's in the front seat of the car, how does that affect attention being focused on Kennedy? I mean, I don't think he ever wore a clown suit or anything that would have, taken away from Kennedy's attention. But obviously, if you have a person sitting in that front seat, if somebody is sitting in this front seat, you do not have a trajectory at Kennedy. You do not. You do not. You cannot see Kennedy through a scope. And you're going to see this on video and in slides, what you can see. You cannot see him if somebody is sitting in that front seat. No Secret Service agents on Kennedy's limousine. This was attributed to Kennedy's orders, though there does not appear to be any support for such a position. I'm going to show you something interesting on that. Overpasses had been cleared except for Dealey Plaza. No precautions had been taken for open windows in buildings. No action was taken or report filed on the man with the open umbrella in Dealey Plaza on what turned out to be a sunny day. Not one agent mentioned this incident in their reports that day. Again, my book will chronicle many. This is just a smattering of the evidence. Dallas Police Chief Jesse Curry noted that security was relatively light in the area of Elm Street. He made some revealing statements to the Warren Commission. First of all, he says, in the planning of this motorcade, we had more motorcycles lined up to be with the president's car, but the Secret Service didn't want that many. Question, did they tell you why? Well, we actually had 2 on each side, but we wanted 4 on each side, and they asked us to drop out some of them and back down the motorcade along the motorcade, which we did. Secret Service agent Emery Roberts was in command of the agents in the follow-up car to the Kennedy vehicle. He ordered the agents not to move after the sound of the first shot. Agent John Reddy had begun to move towards Kennedy and was called back by Roberts. It was Agent Roberts who appeared to take command of the situation at Parkland Hospital, exercising an authority he did not possess. Billy Joe Martin, another motorcyclade officer, reported that 4 motorcycle officers covering the presidential limousine were ordered that under no circumstances were they to leave their positions regardless of what happened. They weren't to leave their positions. Regardless what happens, you don't leave where we put you. Martin told the Warren Commission that the Secret Service told them that they didn't want anyone riding past the president's car and they were to ride to the rear. He allegedly told his girlfriend, Jean Hill, Johnson's Secret Service people came over to the motorcycle cops and gave us a bunch of instructions. They also ordered us into the damnedest escort formation I've ever seen. Ordinarily, you bracket the car with 4 motorcycles, 1 on each fender. But this time, they told the 4 of us assigned to the president's car there'd be no forward escorts. We were to stay well in back and not let ourselves get ahead of the car's rear wheels under any circumstances. I've never heard of a formation like that, much less ridden in one, but they said they wanted the crowds to get an unrestricted view of the president. Well, I guess somebody got an unrestricted view of him, all right. It's only a few of the suspicious examples of the Secret Service that day. If you are objective, and if you find only one witness that I have presented to be credible, then there is powerful evidence that a shooter fired a shot through the windshield of the Kennedy limousine from the south side of the underpass. It is likely that this shot resulted in the wound to Kennedy's throat. The security that existed in Dealey Plaza was the responsibility of the United States Secret Service. Their actions, only of which a few I've chronicled, can only lead to the conclusion that certain members of that group participated in the killing and or the cover-up. It is clear that not one observation by any witness, the evidence of the whole, the statements of the people can work with any other explanation. This evidence passed the test of independent corroboration, geographical limitations, and necessity, time constraints, but also supported the photographic evidence. It can be demonstrated beyond any reasonable doubt that unlike the windshield, there is evidence that was not destroyed. That evidence remains alive in the testimony, the independent corroboration, the photographic evidence, and in Dealey Plaza itself. The final question I want to address to you today before I show you some slides and give you one final comment is to ascertain the difficulty of the shot. I said it was 225 yards away. I'll concede that only certain ammunition could result in a clean hold of the windshield and cause a wound to Kennedy's throat. One expert wrote me that the throat wound was too small to have been made by a 6.5 millimeter projectile. The wound is more consistent with a 5 to 6 millimeter caliber ammunition. There was a multitude of highly accurate cartridges in 1963 that could perform accurately from the distance of the South Underpass. He further noted that for a bullet to penetrate automobile safety glass and inflict a uniform wound, it would indicate a non-frangible or full metal jacketed projectile. I can't reveal this guy's name. This guy is still connected with the Department of Defense of the United States military. He is an expert. I further consulted with a number of experts about the feasibility of a shot originating from this location. All responded without exception that it was not a difficult shot for a world-class sniper. One such expert is John Richin, formerly of the U.S. Army and now a gunsmith and ballistics expert. This distance is about 225 yards, but I try to be conservative. I inquired, I said, let's say that the shooter was 300 yards away trying to take this shot. And let's further say that they had a silencer. What would the effect of that be? And could a person shoot from that distance? His reply was, a world-class shooter could easily shoot 1-inch groupings at the range you specify. A sniper will always maximize the range out to 1,000 yards and some even beyond in order to minimize detection and location. A silencer will not adversely affect accuracy, and while it will not muffle the crack of a supersonic bullet, it will, however, silence the muzzle crack, confusing people as to the location of the shooter. First of all, I think I'll go through the slides, and I'm going to show you the video, and then I've only got about 2 more minutes. Okay, you've seen these. The official statement explanation was because that there were no Secret Service agents on Kennedy's limousine that day was that Kennedy refused to have any Secret Service agents on his limousine. This is on Main Street. Apparently, Kennedy came to that decision in the last 2 blocks of his life that no secret, whoops. I can find it again now. Here we go. Oh, shoot. Clint Hill on Main Street is riding on the back of Kennedy's vehicle. The story's phony. Refused to let any Secret Service agents be on his vehicle. This is the damage that was done to the chrome. Roy Schaefer in the commentary might talk about this a little bit. Again, it takes a whole nother presentation. And I'm tired of being known for this limousine. I want to do some of my other things. This is what the view would look like from the storm drain area, looking at it. And I'm going to show you a video that I took down there too. I have nowhere near with the video camera or my camera to bring in this in as close as what somebody with a high-powered scope could do. You're going to be amazed with some of these things. This is bringing it a little bit closer. You can, even here, you can clearly see figures, but wait till you see on the video. It's going to be very clear. This is the Canceller photograph 30 to 60 seconds after the assassination. Here's the south side of the underpass. This is the truck. The guy's legs, if we could see, Jack White could probably comment on that. He knows who I'm talking about. You can see that there was a man actually where this man said he was standing, that right after the assassination went up here and smelled gunpowder. This is the full copy of the Elchins. It's
Point out the bullet hole.
right here. It corresponds with Kennedy's left ear. This is the Kennedy limousine. Jim, I just want to point this out. I'm not going to make any accusation, but Jim, I just got to do this because I've asked a lot of law enforcement agents. Jim Fetzer pointed this out to me. I think somebody told him about it, is that Clint Hill was a hero after this assassination for what he tried to do. Look at his jacket, or look at the photographs. 95% of the law enforcement people that I show this photograph to, I say, is there anything unusual? They say, yeah, he's wearing a bulletproof vest. I've got friends that are and have been Secret Service agents, FBI, DEA, ATF. I've been in the law enforcement community. If he was wearing a vest on November 22nd, 1963, this again would have been highly, highly unusual.
It's more conspicuous in the print on the cover of the
Much more so. Much more so. Just look at it. I'm not making any accusations. This one has always entertained me. You know, Malcolm Kilduff, saying that clearly a shot entered the back of Kennedy's head and came out the front. I don't know here. Sometimes I think maybe the real explanation was that, they say that he aired later, that maybe they were performing a sobriety test and he was trying to touch his nose. I don't know. Exhibit 350, not the windshield. There's not the windshield. Compare Exhibit 350 with the photograph in Livingston's new book, too. The cracks, of course, are going to expand over time, but examine the direction of the cracks and everything.
This is what the Secret Service produced, claiming it was the windshield.
Exactly. I don't think this was taken that night at all. So concerned, this is Parkland Hospital. Secret Service agent reaching into the car, famous bucket of water, destroying evidence at Parkland Hospital. Believe sincerely, Secret Service doing it. Secret Service agents telling people that they're not holes, not, all these things. It goes on and on. Out of order, I think I've got another one of these slides. This is McHugh. This is where he would have ridden, was supposed to have ridden that day. Would totally have blocked a shot going to Kennedy had he been allowed to ride where he expected to ride. He expected to be sitting in that seat on that day. He was told, no, we want you back in the motorcade so that more people can pay attention to Kennedy back here. These are I think this would be interesting, and Roy might want to explain some of these things. These are the White House Secret Service garage photos. It's reversed. Again, we had technical difficulties to begin with. Apologize for that. What's interesting to me is how overexposed or whatever they kept this. You can't tell what the heck is here. Look. I mean, you can't tell. The basic damage. I don't know if this was. I'm sure it was deliberate. Back seat again. Photographs are taking away. It's reversed too. Roy, you're the one that asked me to reverse that.
By the way, I want to give credit. The stuff that Gene Hill saw is that white objects in the far corner.
Okay.
That's very important later on.
Okay.
That's reversed with this on
Yeah.
the side.
Again, look at the exposure on this. I mean, you can't tell anything.
That's correct.
Yeah.
On the other side.
Exactly. This is a correct photo. The other was reversed.
Yeah, right.
That was the stuff.
Well, it says a stuffed. I'm not convinced whether it's either a stuffed dog or the chrysanthemum. See, Roy, you and I tend to disagree. I didn't want to get in a debate with you on last night. I'll be honest. I tend to believe it's a chrysanthemum, but it's not real important.
It's in testimony.
Yeah.
It's a stuffed lamb. It's a stuffed.
Okay. Whatever. It's not real critical. again, we can't, this is so distorted and overexposed, we can't tell anything. You know, just look how black they keep this area.
Did you digitize that?
I don't have the sophistication to do that. I'll tell you, I'm a computer novice in these things. Again, this is another photograph of the bucket cleaning up the limousine. And that's what it actually says, cleaning up some of the gore. Well, I've been on murder scenes. I've gone to autopsies. I've actually been at murders. You don't clean up when you're at a murder scene. You don't clean up. You preserve everything.
What did they clean?
I don't know what they're cleaning. He's reaching in. I mean, it's got to be scrubbing the blood on the seat. Not very well from those other photographs. But they got a bucket of water, and there's other evidence of a sponge. Deb, I don't know. I don't know. Again, this is a 6th floor view of the window. Again, Stavis Ellis says that this first shot he sees debris flying up happens right here. That's reversed too. We tried this morning. We had a tough time. This is also Millicent Craner, back about 1991, was in Dealey Plaza. This guy, she was just talking to him, claimed that he was in Dealey Plaza November 22nd, 1963. His name was Johnny Brown, it was the name he gave, said he saw a shooter from the south side of the underpass. Just volunteered it to her. Again, I don't know the guy. We didn't say, get together and say, let's fool Millie. So, this I want to get into for one reason. Jim Fetzer had contacted me, and I don't know if the person is here, Jim, saying that there are some photographs that were never published taken by the Associated Press that conclusively show that there was not a hole in the windshield. Well, I wrote Jim back, I had those photographs. I've got the whole series. So just for curiosity's sake, I'm going to show you, these are the unpublished photographs taken by the Associated Press at Parkland Hospital, and if somebody can show me evidence in any of these photographs that it shows to me no evidence either way, but shows that there's clearly not a hole in the windshield, please point it out to me. But I'll just show you this because these were unpublished photographs. You're not going to see them in any book.
No evidence there.
I mean, this is it was bizarre when Jim, when you contacted me with this. Because I don't know what the purpose was, but I thought, oh God, somebody's got something that's going to sabotage everything I've done. The only other interesting thing is I'm going to mention is that some people believe that Cecil Stoughton might have taken more pictures at Parkland that have never been published because he took so few, and that was unlike him.
He took the 2 bucket photographs you showed.
Right. But he should have taken more. And where those photographs are and why, I don't know. My suspicion is that they might show just the opposite. They might clearly show the hole. Again, nothing here. They're taking the bubble top out of the trunk. You don't even see the limousine here. And these, I purchased the entire set. Again, I'm not on a John Armstrong budget, but I thought if something was important, I was going to dig deep. And nothing. I mean, that's it. Okay, I'm gonna let Roy, if you want to discuss. That was your slide. Well, I need to cover some other things though first. That's the entire set of unpublished Associated Press photographs. You've seen them, so form your own conclusion. I want to run the videotape again, and then I've got about 2 minutes after that. But I just want to show you how these cars are going to be going about 25 miles per hour. Remember, Kennedy's car is going 3 to 12 miles per hour maximum. But I'm using a camera, and I'm on that south side storm drain filming what it would look like to a shooter with a Kennedy vehicle coming down. and you'll hear my commentary, which was... I'm on the Stemmons Freeway overpass. I'm looking down directly in front of the depository, these cars are where we know where the first shot hit.
You can see the people.
Or excuse me, where the first shot was believed to have hit. This demonstrates very clearly that a high-powered rifle from this point, which at the time was in the vicinity of a storm drain on the south side of the overpass, this is consistent with a bullet hole going through the front window and probably hitting Kennedy in the throat. The angle, the trajectory, everything is very consistent with that type of shot being taken. It is very clear that
And remember, Kennedy's
with a
car
magnification of a
has to be
scope,
at a more direct
that a
angle
person
because
could
it's
indeed
making
have
the
been aiming
left-hand
at
turn.
Kennedy.
It has to be coming
Now
even more
focusing
direct.
back, this would be a real view without the benefit of a scope. However, it does appear that everything does line up perfectly at this point and would be consistent with a shot which is probably took place somewhere along where we see these signs above Elm Street, which would be consistent with the Alton's photograph. This is the most likely site and really appears to be the only site that would provide an explanation for a shot through the windshield, which we have evidence of, and a shot that would also hit Kennedy. We're looking at this now from lower on a ground level, which even indicates that it's more likely that this area was consistent
And this is nothing like a
with
high-powered
a shot through the windshield for somebody that would have been aiming at Kennedy. I'm going to focus this in with some magnification, again a high-powered scope. Which we're at now could even make that more likely.
See how clear you can see the people all the way on
The trajectory,
Houston and
everything seems to line up perfectly from this point. This point was where the sewer drain was in 1963. That area is now paved over. Directly from the overpass to one of the holes in the overpass. Also, this would have been a very inconspicuous place because everyone would have been focused on the limousine and would have been either down on the plaza or some other vantage points. I'm looking through a tube which would make this equivalent to a scope. And actually this is
And I'm trying to hold this bulky
unbelievable how
camera
this
too.
could correlate with a shot. We see a
See
bus
how
turning
clear
now. Right there the shot would have taken place.
Okay, hit stop on that. Again, I'm hand-holding this camera, this bulky camera, a rifle. This doesn't equate to high-powered scope. The trajectory works perfect. There's a little bit of distortion because of the screen, but you can't believe how clear you can actually see the people in the vehicles. The conclusions that I have been forced to reach in light of compelling evidence are not only disturbing, but they leave me really with emptiness and sadness. As I said, I was 10 years old on November 22nd, 1963. Over half the people alive in the United States today had yet to be born on that date. People ask, what difference does it make what happened over 35 years ago? It's a legitimate question. As I noted at the beginning of my presentation, for those of us who were alive on that day, it will always remain a current event in our lifetimes. It is a date that is forever frozen in our memories. As a 10-year-old boy, I saw the world as frightening but full of promise. John F. Kennedy was the President of the United States. It meant something in a way that it never has since. People have become very cynical about our leaders. Whether Kennedy was liked or not, was good or bad, something did change that day. A faith and trust in government was lost that can only be cleansed by the truth.
History deserves truth. The people alive now and of future generations also deserve that truth. I hope that everyone can recapture the promise that we should have. Walter Lippmann once asked the rhetorical question, is why do old men plant trees that they will never see grow? The answer is obvious. To survive as a people, we must be concerned for our children, our grandchildren, and beyond. People need to remember the promise that they once had. History not only deserves truth, it requires truth. It is only when that happens that we are truly a nation of, by, and for the people. You've let me be up here a very, very long time, and I'm very gracious for your attention, and I'd be happy to answer any questions after the commentary.